Yeah, a quick read through, but it sounds really interesting. New atlas of globes, glaciers finds they have less ice than previously thought. Findings on glacier speed and depth revise outlook for freshwater availability and sea level rise. The first atlas to measure the movement and thickness of the world's glaciers gives a clear but mixed picture of the globe's ice-bound freshwater resources. According to researchers from the Institute of Environmental Geoscience EGE and Dartmouth College. The worldwide survey published in Nature Geoscience measures the velocity and depth of more than 250,000 mountain glaciers. The research revises earlier estimates of global ice volume, now suggesting that there is 20% less ice available for sea level rise in the world's glaciers than previously thought. The results have implications on the availability of water for drinking, power generation, agriculture, and other uses worldwide. The findings also change projections for climate-driven sea level rise expected to affect populations around the globe. You can check out pictures and all this stuff by yourself. I will put a link below. Finding how much ice is stored in glaciers is a key to anticipate the effects of climate change on society, said Roman Millen, a postdoctoral scholar at EGE and lead author of the study. With this information, we will be closer to knowing the size of the biggest glacial water reservoirs and also to consider of how to respond to a world with less glaciers. The finding of less ice is important and will have implications for millions of people around the world, said Matthew Mogerly-Gim, the Evans Family Professor of Earth Sciences at Dartmouth, and co-author of the study. Even with this research, however, we still don't have a perfect picture of how much water is really locked away in these glaciers. Probably the question should be of how much water is still locked under the glaciers in Earth's mantle and so forth. The new atlas covers 98% of the world's glaciers according to the study. Many of these glaciers are shallower than estimated in prior research. Double counting of glaciers along the peripheries of Greenland and Antarctica also clouded previous data sets. The study found less ice in some regions and more ice in others, with the overall result that there is less glacial ice worldwide than previously thought. So again, you can make this a timeline issue because if there's less ice, they will melt quicker. So things happen quicker than previously thought. The research found that there is nearly a quarter less glacial ice in South America's tropical Andes Mountains. The finding means that there is up to 23% less fresh water stored in an area from which millions of people depend during their everyday lives. The reduction of this amount of fresh water is the equivalent of the complete drying of Mono Lake, California's third largest lake. Yeah, funny that they mentioned Mono Lake. On the contrary, Asia's Himalayan mountains were found to have over one-third more ice than previous estimates. The results suggested about 37% more water resources could be available in the region, although the continent glaciers are melting quickly. The overall trend of warming and mass loss remains unchanged. This study provides the necessary picture for models to offer more reliable projections of how much time these glaciers have left. The melting of glaciers due to climate change is one of the main causes of rising sea levels. It is currently estimated that glaciers contribute 25 to 30% to the overall sea level rise, threatening about 10% of the world's population living lower than 30 feet above sea level. The reduction by 20% of glacial ice available for sea level rise lessens the potential for glacial contribution to sea level by 3 inches, revising it downward from 13 inches to just over 10 inches. This protection includes contributions from all the world's glaciers except the two large ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica, which have a much more larger potential contribution to the sea level rise. What? They aren't included, except the two large ice sheets of Greenland and Antarctica. What? Comparing global differences with previous estimates is just one side of the picture. Yeah. If you start looking locally, then the changes are even larger. To correctly project the future evolution of glaciers, capturing fine details is much more important than just the total volume. According to the study, depth measurements previously existed for only about 1% of the world's glaciers, with most of the glaciers only being partially studied. The glacial ice estimates that did exist prior to the new study were almost entirely uncertain, according to the research team. The uncertainty is due in part to the lack of ice flow measurements showing the location of thick and thin ice, all of which is gathered through indirect techniques. To create a massive ice flow database, the research team studied more than 800,000 pairs of satellite images of glaciers, including large ice caps, narrow alpine glaciers, slow valley glaciers, and fast tidewater glaciers. The high-resolution images were acquired between 2017 and 18 by NASA's Landsat 8 and the European Space Agency's Sentinel-1 and Sentinel-2 satellites. The data was processed using more than 1 million hours of computation at EGE. We generally think about glaciers as solid ice that may melt in the summer, but ice actually flows like thick syrup under its own weight, says Morgan. The ice flows from high altitude to lower elevations where it eventually turns to water. Using satellite imagery, we are able to track the motion of these glaciers from space at the global scale and from there deduce the amount of ice all around the world. The resulting first global map of flow velocities covers most of the world's terrestrial glaciers, including regions where no previous mapping existed, such as the southern cordilleras of South America, subantarctic islands, and New Zealand. Yeah, that's quite long. Our estimates are closer but still uncertain, particularly in regions where many people rely on glaciers, said Millen, like Central Europe. Collecting and sharing measurements is complicated because glaciers are spread throughout so many countries with different research priorities. According to the team, without direct field measurements, the estimate of glacial freshwater resources will remain uncertain. The study calls for a re-evaluation of the evolution of the world's glaciers in numerical model, as well as direct observations of ice thickness in the tropical Andes and the Himalayas, which are major water towers but that remain poorly documented. Yeah, we made it through. So let's search a picture. We could actually watch the video, if you don't mind. I haven't seen that yet. How does it work? It doesn't work. Yeah, that was it. Quite short. Anyway. But I really would like to. This would be really cool to have some time and watch the same imagery what they have with this kind of background thought that the glaciers might be this kind of volcano. like natural occurrence. They're pumping water out, and since they're high up in the mountains, they might freeze over. And also, probably the consistency, like the water which is pouring out itself might be in a way special that it's behaving like it does, forms this ice, and many people have seen those glacier caves underneath the glacier. So I was thinking there could be also like heat being emanating from the ground. That's why they're starting melting from underneath somehow. Yeah, but interesting. A little bit more stuff to search through and probably find something which would correlate with the glacier or volcanical theorem, or however you put it, thought play, since we have, or yeah, there has been already gathered some quite impressive amount of evidence for my idea that glaciers are this kind of geyser kind type of volcano, which of course also can spit out ground material, hence lava, which is to be found, for example, in mountains like cryptodomes and such, or Mount St. Helens, which was a cryptodome, like the one in Germany. But anyway, less ice or more ice, but now at least we have really nice maps with many colors. Thanks. Bye.